10 Secrets About Brock Lesnar Revealed in His Autobiography. To some, Brock Lesnar is the ultimate badass in wrestling, using his very real strength and power to dominate the ring. To others, he's one of the worst parts of the current product, with his part-time status and lengthy title reigns causing many fans to change the channel. Whatever you think about the former Universal Champion, Lesnar is an interesting figure, but someone who hasn't revealed much about himself on TV. In 2011, though, Lesnar and Paul Heyman co-wrote Deathclutch, an autobiography on the Beast, which gave fans an insight into what makes Brock tick. Here are 10 secrets about Brock Lesnar revealed in his autobiography. Number 10. He didn't want to be a WWE lifer. Brock Lesnar may be one of the biggest names in wrestling, but it's no secret that he's tried out for other ventures, namely football and the UFC. In his book, Lesnar writes that even when he was in WWE in his early 20s, he knew he didn't want to be around for a long time, and had no plans to be a WWE lifer. The Beast wrote that he was aware of many older wrestlers who had ruined their bodies by going in the ring for too long, and that was something that the youngest undisputed champion didn't want to happen to him. For being so young, it's surprisingly wise that Lesnar was aware of the toll wrestling would take on him, and had no desire to end up like so many legends who now live in pain. It's also ironic that Lesnar was only around for a couple of years, as he's now in his 8th year of his return to WWE. And though he never planned to be a WWE lifer, the 42-year-old Beast incarnate can still be found in the ring to this day. Number 9. He gets his motivation from his mother. Before Brock Lesnar was conquering streaks and taking opponents to Suplex City, the future Beast had humble origins in South Dakota as the son of a pair of dairy farmers. At the start of Deathclutch, Lesnar says his parents weren't well off financially, and that they wanted better for the future WWE champion. Lesnar in particular cites his mother for giving him a winning mentality, as her philosophy was that if you don't like losing, then simply don't lose. It's safe to say that Lesnar took his mother's words to heart, as he has succeeded in almost every venture he's pursued, including wrestling at both an amateur and professional level, as well as in the UFC. As for wanting his son to be better off financially, then that clearly happened as well, as Lesnar is constantly cited as one of the highest-paid superstars each year, and after earning an estimated $12 million last year, more than the likes of John Cena or Roman Reigns, Brock doesn't need to worry about milking cows anytime soon. Number 8. He's a first-degree misanthrope. If you've watched Brock Lesnar in WWE, especially in his second run, you'll know that he doesn't do tag team partners, and there's a special reason for that. In his book, the Beast describes himself as a first-degree misanthrope, which means he can't stand human contact or interaction. This was alluded to years later on Brock's appearance on the Stone Cold podcast, where he admitted that he doesn't like people, which probably explains why so much of his private life is shrouded in mystery. After WrestleMania 35, it was reported that Lesnar left the show almost immediately after losing the Universal title in the show's opener, and whilst tradition has dictated that wrestlers stay for an entire show out of respect to the other performers, Lesnar didn't want to watch the show. It's this example and countless others that have led to fan animosity at Brock, who has had lengthy title reigns despite a seeming disdain for other wrestlers. But it's clear that this misanthrope doesn't care what others have to say about him or his actions. Number 7. He was abusing alcohol and pain pills. Like many wrestlers, Lesnar's intense lifestyle in the ring got the better of him, and he eventually took to alcohol and pain medication to ease the intense pain he was constantly in. Vodka and Vicodin were two of Lesnar's main vices, as the Beast describes the dangerous combination as two of his best friends in one chapter. Lesnar goes on to write that though he'd wrestled at an amateur level, he just wasn't the type of person to be living a hectic wrestling lifestyle, which not only included competing in the ring, but also training and constantly traveling from city to city and from hotel to hotel. Nowadays, Lesnar doesn't have to worry about the toll of a wrestling lifestyle, as he only appears for a handful of dates each year. And whilst Brock has seemingly overcome his battles with alcohol and substances that plagued his career, there's plenty of other superstars who aren't so fortunate. Number 6. He was good friends with Mr. Perfect. Though we've already mentioned that Brock Lesnar doesn't like interacting with people, there are some stars that have reached the Beast's icy heart. In his book, Lesnar says that Curt Hennig is one such person, and that Mr. Perfect was a massive help to him early on in his career, resulting in the two becoming good friends. The Beast recalls Perfect giving him a sound piece of advice, saying, "Get in to get out," which, according to Lesnar, meant that you had to work hard and get stuck in to be able to one day leave wrestling without being used up like so many stars who never reached the top. In one of the more emotional chapters of the book, Lesnar says that he wishes Hennig practiced what he preached, as Hennig would sadly pass away in 2003 after substance abuse issues, and Brock writes that he thinks about the former Intercontinental Champion every day. Clearly, Perfect's friendship with Brock touched Lesnar in a way that no other wrestlers have, and we can't help but wonder what Perfect would say today after all of Brock's success. Number 5. He doesn't remember much of his first WWE run. Lesnar's first run with WWE is something most superstars dream of. Debuting the night after WrestleMania 18, Lesnar's first year saw him capture the King of the Ring crown, the 2003 Royal Rumble, and the WWE Championship on 2 occasions. Though his second year wasn't quite as fruitful, with him winning the WWE title just once, it's still admirable, but Lesnar doesn't remember much of it. In his book, The Beast Incarnate describes his first run as a blur, and admits that much of his poor memory about his time in WWE is due to his substance abuse issues. One major downside of this is that the autobiography reads as more of a fact-checker than a personal analysis of the Beast, with just a few new bits of information being offered to fans. Whilst Lesnar's first run with WWE may have been a blur, it was still an impressive feat, and we're sure that there's plenty of superstars who wish they could be so successful as Lesnar, even if he doesn't remember it. Number 4. He was furious about losing to The Rock. At SummerSlam 2002, Brock Lesnar became the youngest WWE Undisputed Champion, defeating The Rock in a passing of the torch moment. Like many big wins though, Lesnar was scheduled to repay the favor down the line, and that came in March 2003, where the face Lesnar was booked to face the heel Great One at a SmackDown house show. Just weeks before WrestleMania 19, the house show took place in The Rock's hometown of Miami, but in his book, Lesnar writes about how he was irate to be asked to lose clean to the Great One, who was no stranger to using dirty tactics. It didn't help matters that Lesnar only found out about the result of the match less than an hour before his entrance, and this proved to be the turning point for the Beast's relationship with the company. Claiming that McMahon had lied to him, Lesnar's relationship with WWE was never the same, and even though he'd go on to win the WWE title at WrestleMania 19, that strained relationship never healed, and in just 1 year, the Beast had parted ways with WWE. Number 3. He wanted to return to WWE after leaving. In March 2004, Lesnar shocked the world with his abrupt departure from WWE, and though he pursued a career in the NFL, that didn't work out. Mere weeks after leaving WWE, the former superstar was involved in a motorcycle accident that saw a minivan collide with Brock's own vehicle. And whilst this didn't stop him from trying out for a career in football, most leagues weren't interested in an injured former wrestler. In Deathclutch, Lesnar admits that he called Vince McMahon about a possible return to WWE, but given that he'd just left the underwhelming WrestleMania 20 match with Goldberg, and that he'd had plenty of attitude problems during his WWE tenure, the boss said no. Vince ultimately changed his mind though, and offered Brock a deal, though after telling Brock that he'd be on a low salary and would be starting from the bottom, the former 3-time WWE champion declined the offer. Instead, fans would have to wait until 2012 to see Brock back in a WWE ring, and given the reports of how much he earns each year, it's clear his current deal is far better than what Vince McMahon once offered him. Number 2. He's extremely arrogant. We've given excerpts from Lesnar's book, but if you read it cover to cover, the Beast's arrogance is hard to deny. Even before you open Deathclutch, Lesnar's arrogance is there, as on the book's blurb, Lesnar is described as the biggest pay-per-view attraction in the world, as well as the baddest dude on the planet. Throughout the 240 pages of Deathclutch, Lesnar comes off as incredibly cocky about his time in the wrestling business, often saying that anyone who did beat him in the ring only won because of pure chance, and that no superstar had any right defeating him in the ring. This attitude makes for a strange read, as there's been multiple reports of Lesnar enjoying putting over other stars, And it's not like he lost to just anyone, with legends like Kurt Angle, The Big Show, and Eddie Guerrero being some of the stars to have a win over the Beast. It's entirely possible that Brock was writing as Brock Lesnar the character rather than Edward Brock Lesnar the man when he said that other superstars had no right going over him. But whatever the case, Lesnar often comes across as self-entitled. Number 1. He sued the WWE. By 2004, Lesnar's personal demons and attitude issues had made him a liability, so not only did he want to leave, but the company wanted him gone as well. To leave, Lesnar signed a special release form without reading the document in its entirety, which massively backfired for the now former superstar. As part of their deal, Vince McMahon had included a 6-year non-compete clause, meaning Lesnar wouldn't be able to compete in wrestling or fighting until 2010. And after his failed NFL run, returning to the ring wasn't what Lesnar had planned. When Lesnar attempted to sue the company, claiming the clause prohibited him from earning a living, the company fired back with a claim of their own, as Lesnar had appeared at a New Japan show the same year as his release. The case went back and forth, and in July 2005, the two parties even began negotiating a Lesnar return, but ultimately that didn't pan out. In April 2006, both WWE and Lesnar reached a settlement, and the case was ultimately dismissed. And at UFC 77 in October 2007, Lesnar officially joined UFC, now free of his non-compete clause, where he'd dominate the octagon before his 2012 WWE return. Well guys, thanks for watching our video. If you like this one, please check out our previous video, 10 huge surprises WWE still have planned for 2020. You can check out our other high-rated videos by clicking at the upper right-hand corner or down in the description field. If you did like this video, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so you don't miss a single video from us. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and as always, thank you for watching.